Doesn't
Okay,
look good.
do you want to send aid to Ukraine?
I have sent aid to Ukraine. I've actually donated to Anna's charity several times.
Do you think the United States government should send aid to Ukraine?
No, we didn't
Okay.
vote for that.
I think every single person I've seen that's gotten angry about this holds that same position. I wanted to talk to you because you added me in a tweet in reference to a recent. My God, everybody's DMing me right now. Sorry, everybody, about the DM notifications. I saw this thing in my feed, in my ats. I don't check my ats very often, but you know, when I hit my notifications and I see one, I tend to scroll as any good man does. And I wondered if it would be okay if we just played the video to start off with. I think it makes more sense. With the recent news cycle, with everything going on right now, it wouldn't be that too surprising if people have already forgotten about what we're talking about. So can I share screens quick and you can take a peek?
Sure,
Okay,
man.
fantastic. Let's start.
Rather look at it together, right? You know,
yes.
Better that way.
Yeah, that makes more sense. So here is the original video. There was a few different versions posted online, but it's all the same video. This is a video presumably filmed in eastern Ukraine, out in the eastern Ukrainian fields. The exact location is not disclosed, so we don't know specifically which location this was. But this man right here was sitting out in a field, this Russian soldier, not really doing anything, kind of just staring at his hands, staring at the floor. This FPV drone armed with explosives flies up to him, sees that he's not moving at all, and for 30 seconds kind of just flies there. Maybe the drone, I don't know what's in the drone pilot's head. Maybe he's baffled at the fact that he's not moving. Maybe he's trying to figure out exactly what's going on, or maybe is this a decoy? I mean, it was like zero movement. He was like a mannequin. So here's the video for people who haven't seen it. And warning, it is very distressing. The first time I saw it, I didn't put it on my feed because it was too distressing. It was only when people started talking about it that I mentioned it, because it is hard to watch. But here you guys are. Here's the video. You can see the FPV it flies pretty close. He's just kind of sitting there in his boots. And I mean, this is really the whole video. It's just him sitting in this field as the drone pilot tries to kind of figure out what's going on. No, I really thought for a second it could be a decoy, but there's just too much detail on the face for me to think that it's a decoy. I mean, it is a person. It's absolutely a person. It's just hard to imagine so little movement with a drone so close to you having hurt, because those things are loud. And then it makes impact, and that's the end of the video.
Yeah.
And so you added me with this video where you said that this is a war crime. At DylanBurns1776, what say you? And I simply responded, no.
You said no.
Yeah, I just said no. And so this is the conversation we're now having on stream, just to check with each other to see exactly why you think it's a war crime, because you told me that if the situations were flipped, you told me this in DM, that I would say that this is a war crime, that it would be different if this was
a Palestinian. You would definitely call this a war crime. If this was a Ukrainian, you would have called this a war crime. Okay. So yes, that's just my take on it. This guy has given up. He is not armed, from what you can tell. Earlier in the war, you saw where Russians were actually surrendering to the drones and stuff, and they were actually taking prisoners. This is why a lot in the world of professional arms, we don't like drones all that much, because it takes some of the humanity out of war. Do you remember?
Wait, I'm sorry. This is somewhat related, but I don't know if it takes the humanity out of war. I think it's human beings taking the humanity out of war. Because when I see these drone videos, right, as encapsulations of just the front line, I kind of like the fact, and I know this is weird to say, I like the fact that people are being exposed to what war is really like, seeing how horrible it is, how brutal it is. I think that it's good for documentarian purposes. I think what's taking the humanity out of it is people making dubstep edits where the same guy blows up 7 times in a row and they add like wacky noises and sound effects. I think that's what's taking humanity out of it, is the humans taking humanity out of it.
mean, to be honest, a lot of technology has taken humanity out of war. I mean, when you literally have like people in our B-52s and our B-2s looking through cameras, and basically it's a video game dropping bombs. That takes some of
But
the
this ain't no
humanity out.
video
But at
game.
least
This is the most human, one of the most human clips of the war I've ever
this
seen.
is actually heartbreaking, and my visceral reaction to it, and I've done multiple combat tours, and I'm like, this is fucking heartbreaking. And I don't care. It's not like I'm not pro Russia. I want Ukraine to win. I just want the U.S. involvement out of it. But it's I want nothing but the best for the Ukraine, and I'm just like, this is kind of a step over the line when it comes to
Okay, I'm gonna.
humanity.
By the way,
Now,
chat. I'm
is it
pausing it because I just don't want to see this on repeat over and over. But you guys, you've seen the
yeah.
clip enough. Continue.
So it's oh yeah, I'm gonna stop watching that. I'm sorry.
No, it's
Um,
okay. But I'm
it,
just keeping it
yeah,
up so people remember what we're talking about.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and
So
that's fine. But the fact that he was unarmed, the fact that he's not moving, and that's where it's a gray area, right? I know under U.S. doctrine, under our ROEs, we definitely would not authorize this to happen. Probably would capture him and hold him prisoner, see what kind of information we can get off him, if any. And that's just a U.S. deal. I don't expect Ukraine to fall under the same ROEs that the U.S. would. Um, if he was in a defensive position, if he was in a bunker, if he was armed, it'd be a different animal, right? It's the posture at which this happens that brings me, like, is it really is it 100% a war crime? No, there's definitely a gray area there. But when I saw that, I was just like, oh, that's next level, and I'm just kind of like, that's like with Eddie Gallagher. You're familiar with Eddie Gallagher, right?
terrible with names. Remind me. I might know the story, not the name.
U.S. Navy SEAL accused of killing an injured combatant.
Okay.
Okay, the Hague wanted to bring him up on trial. Of course, the U.S. wouldn't allow it because fuck the world. We're not going to allow the world to determine the guilt or innocence of our soldiers.
But we
Was
want the world
eventually,
to be guided by that same court. Like when an African warlord does
yeah,
X,
yeah,
Y,
yeah,
or Z, we
yeah,
want them to be held to it. I mean, we help
yeah,
create the court, so it's a little weird to
yes.
hold everybody else to a different standard and not ourselves, though.
I mean, that's what happens when you're on top of the pyramid. So, and also, what army are they going to use to get them? That's been the U.S. stance. We'll never allow a foreign country to adjudicate guilt or innocence of our U.S. soldiers while they're out
Well, it wouldn't be a
operating.
foreign country. It would be a transnational organization.
Uh, Not America stand. That's all I need to know.
Okay, well,
So
that's a different discussion
that's
for a different time.
yeah,
We
yeah.
obviously disagree on
But
that. I'm a bit advocate of us allowing that to
right.
happen to U.S. soldiers, and I
So
know that some U.S. troops disagree with that, but that's a different day for a different discussion. Back to
so
like
Eddie
this,
Gallagher.
yeah.
Eddie Gallagher was accused of killing an unarmed injured combatant because they weren't able to take him prisoner because of whatever mission they were on at the time. He was brought up on charges in America. I believe Trump pardoned him, and then he was found innocent by the Navy afterwards. But when I read the reports about Eddie Gallagher, I'm like, oh, he canoed him. That's I don't know if you know what that is. It's when you put the barrel
And then
right there.
the canoe, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you splay the mouth, you splay the face open. They call it canoeing. Um, it's pretty gruesome. Anyway, but he stabbed him first and then he canoed him, so it was even worse. I don't know if he did it. What I've read, it looks like he fucking did it, and he probably should have been punished for it. Um, and you probably would have called for, hey, let's do the trial thing. You're a supporter of the world courts and shit like that, and I get that.
Yeah, I'm a
I don't hold
globalist.
that against you. Yeah, I don't hold that against you. But when I saw that video, I was like, yeah, that would be considered a war crime by U.S. standards. Why the different standard?
So to me, it isn't. either somebody 100% is a war crime. To me, either it is a war crime or it isn't. I don't think it's like 80% war crime or 50% war crime. I think something either meets the standards of being a war crime or doesn't. And when I hear you discuss this, and I know you have your own experience in the armed forces, but I find this experience sometimes coming back and speaking with American veterans where they describe war is very different than my experience of how I've seen war, because their battlefields have been in Afghanistan or Iraq,
Yeah.
and it's a very different battlefield in Ukraine. It's very different to have
Different
a
culture,
peer
different
opponent,
everything,
a
right?
peer opponent
Yeah.
where they have a much bigger air force than you. They have much more men than you. They have much more artillery than you. They have much more armored vehicles than you, and they're constantly on the. It's a totally different environment and the bloodiest war currently on the planet. So
Okay.
when we're talking about this guy is sitting in a field, not doing anything, right? He doesn't have a weapon. He is unarmed. That is true. But he is in military fatigues. So he's very clearly a soldier, not a civilian. If you are a soldier on a other country's land, part of the invading force, doing nothing, you are immediately a valid military target at all
What did they
time,
do under?
basically all times of the day, 24/7, as long as there is not a substantial risk to killing civilian personnel, and I don't see any civilians in this field. And so
No,
whether or
I
not
don't
he's
see anyone else
unarmed,
in that field.
whether or not he's sitting down in the field, none of that really matters when it comes to the legality of it. I remember watching, I was in Southern Pokrovsk with a drone team, and I saw this man in Hello Kitty merch with his little patch on his arm, with his headset, fly a drone and kill a man hiding in a porta potty. Now, whether that man had a rifle, whether that man had a grenade, whether he was hiding for his life, the whole point of the war, of every war, is to kill and not be killed, to bring death to the
Well,
enemy and to avoid death yourself. And if you're the Ukrainians, the way you win this war is by doing enough damage to the invading and occupying army that eventually they go home. And so this is the Ukrainians pursuing their military objectives. And unless you can prove to me that this man could have been easily detained and arrested, because we don't know where this is. I mean, I don't know if you know how far FPV drones can go now, but they can go really far. Before, maybe 3-4 kilometers. I remember going out back from Pokros on the road back to Dobropila, and we're talking tens of kilometers from the front. 2 hours after we went down that road, a vehicle behind us got hit by an FPV drone much farther than FPV drones have been recorded going before. Fiber optics are only making it worse, less harder to jam those things. And so this guy could be as far back as 12 kilometers. And so how are you going to make this guy march 12 kilometers, 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers, possibly through Russian positions, through Russian trenches, through these barbed wire, if they cannot guarantee that they can retrieve this man? There's no legal international or Ukrainian or American standard saying that they have to go detain this man if they cannot get it. The point of the war is bring destruction to the enemy and not yourself. It's not a war crime. What's bad about this is war. War is bad. That's why this is evil, because this is men killing men. That's why people have the visceral reaction to it.
Yeah. I mean, I've conducted war, three separate campaigns. I understand the evils of war, but it's this guy. Literally, you just see the defeat in his eyes, and he's just like, he just accepted death, which is sad.
It's incredibly sad.
No, it's
but something being sad isn't a war crime.
But the question is, and one of the distinctions that you put in there that I thought was interesting, because Russia is considered a not peer. It's supposedly a superior fighting force or whatever because of numbers and equipment and things like that. So because of that, that excuses a little bit more. It allows for a little bit more leeway. Is that what you're getting at, or?
Well, no, there's not even if Russia could be 10 times weaker than Ukraine, and this would equally not be a war crime. It's just the military logic by which disabling or like either sending home injured or eliminating 200 or 300ing as many of their men as possible, their soldiers, is the objective of the army that's trying to defend their land and get the Russians to leave. You want to make the cost high for the enemy and make the cost low for yourself.
I understand the logistics of war. I understand how all that works. It's just there's a certain aspect of it. It's so just
because this guy was to get to the
this seems over the line,
to get to the pointed end of it, because this guy was depressed and he probably, and maybe he, we don't even know what was in this guy's mind, but assuming that he had given up, right? Assuming that
Well, it
he
looks
wasn't
like
taking the weird training advice of stand still that I know some people have been telling soldiers for some stupid reason.
that's
Assuming
dumb.
that
Dumb take.
he is defeated. Uh,
Yeah.
what does that really change? I mean,
I
because from
just
the Ukrainian soldiers' perspective, if they don't take this guy out, and a month later, this dude could be assaulting another trench. It's not like he can just ask the Russians, "Okay, I think war sucks now. Can I go home?"
well, I just look. I like I said. I think drones are taking humanity out of war. I think if there was actual soldiers there
If
taking
it's
them,
only because of the
taking
drone that we're talking about the humanity of this. This was a bullet. This wouldn't even be a discussion because we wouldn't have seen it.
if a fucking soldier out on the field ran up on that guy, chances are they would probably just take him. It's a totally different. I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe
Well, yeah,
maybe
if they could grab him and
maybe
bring him back to
Ukraine has
lines, but
dehumanized Russians enough. Have decided to dehumanize them enough to where they don't care and they'll put them down like fucking dogs every chance they get. Maybe I don't think they're like that though.
that's
I
not
don't
what
think the
I'm
Ukrainians are
saying.
doing
But
that.
there's no way to
But
retrieve this man.
well, we don't know that. But it's just I thought it was a waste of a military asset. And
$500
it just
drone.
we could yes for looking at someone that defeated and shit, bro. That's not a
But
that's not no
I'm not.
that's not even a good kill.
I'm not even
Like
saying.
whoever flew that is a fucking monster. And yeah, good luck to that individual in the afterlife. That's just
I think we should be a little careful with like jumping to judgment about whether the dude's a monster. I can't say what I would have done in the situation. I would find it very difficult to bring about this man's demise. But if you are a Ukrainian soldier who have seen your village get occupied, everything get burnt to the ground, and you know the only way you're ever going to be able to get back to your home is if you bring enough damage to the enemy that they can no longer carry out the war. You do that by disabling their military assets. And you want to know what? If the standard is the Russian soldier is sad, we can't take him out. Well, then let me tell you, 40 to 50% of the
that
Russian
was
armed
more than sad,
forces,
bro.
I
That was
mean,
more than
sad, defeated, PTSD riddled, like
that dude was
pilot
cooked,
is
bro.
not a psychologist. He's not, his job
No,
isn't
a
to be this
pilot is
dude's
not a
therapist.
psychologist.
His
I'm
job
not
is to
asking to.
eliminate the
I'm
enemy.
just saying if you want to keep people on the side of Ukraine, it's shit like that that'll actually harden them against it.
I
Okay.
honestly, I think
It was a very dumb move by the Ukrainians to release that on the internet. It hurt them. It hurt them more than it hurt Russia. That dude, he was already broken. There is no maybe he could be brought back and utilized later, but bro, he was cooked. He was done. Um, he wasn't a threat. If you thought he was a threat, and I
he
understand
was
the
not an
viewpoint of
active threat. He was not a threat in that moment.
he wasn't. It didn't appear to be a threat at all.
Well,
He
you
wasn't
don't.
in a
I mean, he's
defensive
not a threat in that moment.
position.
He could
Well,
just. I mean, there's a dude.
going off
He's
of what
sitting
I
in the
saw in the
field.
video.
Yeah, of a 40-second clip where a dude sits in the field
Yeah,
saying nothing. Like at the
yeah.
like.
Literally staring at his murderer through a fucking
What do you mean
camera.
murderer? He's a soldier on a foreign land. He's getting killed in
Okay,
combat. He knew the
was it a
risks when he
gesture?
signed the contract. He volunteered.
Do you know he volunteered? Do you know he won the contract?
If you are a Russian soldier in Ukraine, you volunteered. That is the only way a Russian can end up in
We
Ukraine. I don't know if you're just finding
all
this out, but
No, I actually I didn't know. I didn't know that.
the only
From what
the
the news
conscripts
said, even conscripts are being
there
sent
are
there.
some conscripts, but those conscripts are Ukrainians, as in they forcefully mobilize people in Ukrainian territory to being conscripts. Those are the only conscripts. So maybe there's a slight chance that he's a Ukrainian forcefully mobilized conscript. That's a possibility. But honestly, most of those guys died early on because they were used in some pretty haphazard assaults,
Yeah.
and they were
They
not
were
treated with. I mean, at the end of the day, they might call them Russian. They still treat them like Ukrainians. But like.
yeah.
Yes, if you're a Russian soldier, you sign a contract because conscripts by law are not allowed to be sent over into Ukraine, at least by Russian law. That doesn't mean it's never happened, but it's been very small, isolated incidents where the Putin is scared to like send the conscripts in mass because, well, if he does that, then that's going to come with backlash because You know, that's not somebody volunteering to go into hell. That's an 18, 19-year-old who just, you know, got taken, put in the armed forces, and now is in a war he didn't sign up for. The Russians have tried to isolate much of the public from the worst throes of the wars in order to keep it more politically palatable for those who might feel like, I don't really know anything about it. It's not bothering me, so I won't bother it, which is a lot of political apathy in Russia.
Yeah. I mean, we utilize that kind of tactic here as well. I mean, when we were doing the Forever campaign in Afghanistan and even Iraq, we didn't show a lot of stuff all the time because, you know, they were worried about the American public getting fatigued over it. I mean, yeah, people don't like war. War sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, I I got burnt out on it for fuck's sake. But yeah, it's I don't know, man. It was just that was a next level. I have seen that defeat in people's eyes before if we picked them up to bring them back for, you know, captured them and shit like that. And it's just, oh, dude, the amount of stuff. I don't know what that guy saw. I don't know what he's been through. I don't know, man. It was just next level. And I was just like, well, I actually wanted your feedback on it. Yes, my visceral reaction was, oh, that's a war crime, but that's because of US ROEs, probably. You know, I mean, hell, I was in when they were telling us we had to take at least 3 shots before we could determine exactly where they were to engage. Stupid fucking Obama ROEs and shit like that. Yeah.
The reason I'm hesitant, well, not only am I hesitant to call this a war crime because it's just by international legal definition not a war crime. This hasn't really been, like, drone warfare has not been super defined in international law in the first place. So even if they wanted to, that hasn't even been done yet. So just by the bare bones definition of the law, I know it's not a war crime. I know by Ukrainian law, it's not a war crime. By Russian law, it's not a war crime. By every single party to this war international organization, it would not be considered a war crime. But at the same time that videos like this are blowing up, and I'm seeing, and I'm not saying, I hate to, I don't know, this is not an aspersion, but I see it being posted by a lot of vet bros, a lot of dudes with podcasts who are taking their military experience and kind of plastering it on every other war in the world. I'm seeing this visceral outrage over this, where my experience with people being war crime with drones is old women. My experience with people being hit with drones is churches during their baptisms having bombings and shellings and attacks, or ambulance drivers or fire truck drivers, where they'll bomb a old woman and then the ambulance driver will come to help that old woman and then they'll bomb the ambulance driver.
That's fucking terrible. Yeah,
that type of stuff.
That is like legit war crime stuff. That's all spelled out. And
it's an everyday experience in here, son. I've filmed it. It's horrible. It's well documented, and it's only increasing every day. That stuff didn't get a whiff of attention on the scale that this one did, with a lot of vet bro commentary on social media. And it really angers me because these are values that I would assume that no veteran would be like, yeah, I'm so tough. Let me go hunt this babushka, this 7-year-old woman walking with a cane, or let me practice my drone targeting on that little dog in the road because it looks so tiny. I bet if I hit it, it shows I'm a good drone pilot. This is stuff that I assume would make most people viscerally react. But this is the video that ends up getting attention and called a war crime. I would not be as annoyed if the reaction to this was, oh my gosh, this is really sad, war's horrible, I wish this guy could have been captured, instead of, if that was the only reaction, then I wouldn't be, that perturbed. But I see this is a war crime, and then all of the civilians getting hunted literally on the same day that this gets out. It got 1/10 of the attention, if that. And so that creates a visceral reaction for me.
I mean, so I'm not even following this stuff all that much. I've gotten out of the streaming deal for a little bit, taking a break, doing some other stuff. So I mean, I've not kept up with it as much as I used to. Basically because, well, I'm fatigued over it. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of seeing the death. I'm tired of US troops on the ground over there, training people. We should, hey, if we want to give them equipment, cool, let's give them equipment. If we want to give them training, let's do that in Poland. Let's not do that in Ukraine. I don't want American soldiers, sailor, airmen, Marines putting their life on the line um, for something that I believe is not our problem. Uh, but you know, me and you are going to differ on that. But when I
Extremely.
saw that, you know, when I saw that, I was like, oh no, that's too far. That's too far. I sat and watched.
Have you ever
When we
have
were
you ever heard what about the human safari?
no, I haven't. No, I
Okay.
no. It's and I know there's a lot of war crimes Russia side into Ukraine, and I find all that to be detestable and horrible, especially how they've decimated complete fucking villages and cities, you know, with just uh, insane amounts of artillery barrages and shit like that. It's fucking disgusting. Okay, there's no military reasoning behind some of the things that the Russians have done. I'm not making any excuses for them. Far from it. But that, you know, that shit is like it. I'm not seeing it. I saw that and I was
Why
like,
do you think that this got in your feed, but all of the old women getting hunted on a daily basis didn't?
I actually don't know. Because I mean, if you actually look at my Twitter, you'll realize I don't do much on Twitter right now. I check in every now and then just to see what's going on because kind of unplugged. It's been kind of nice, Dylan, to be honest. But when I saw that and I was like, oh well, who do I know? Who do I know? And I know that you went back, that you were back in Ukraine. You know, I'm like, okay, well, let's see what you think because you're closer to it, you're more tapped into it than me.
Mhm.
I was literally reaching out. I'm like, hey, this is my reaction. What say you? I
Mhm.
wasn't like calling you out saying you're an idiot or anything like
So,
that. Far from it. I
well, no,
really
I
wanted
don't
your
think
opinion.
you were calling me an
So
idiot, but I don't because you have military experience under.
yes,
Let's just talk about screw. I don't want to say screw Ukrainian military standards, but let's say disregard Russian or Ukrainian or even international military standards. Um, if you were in a different war than say Afghanistan, I don't know which war you served in specifically.
I did Kosovo, Iraq, and Afghanistan. So
Okay. If you were in a different war than Kosovo and Iraq and Afghanistan, or like, even better question, between those wars, did the standards for engagement change?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
Did they change
standards were definitely.
significantly?
So yes, especially between different presidencies. So of course, under the Kosovo deal, we were under Bill Clinton. When it
Hmm.
came to Iraq, we were under Bush and then Obama. Same thing in Afghanistan. Under Bush, the ROE was way looser, and we did some things even then. I was like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about that. But I wasn't the one pulling the trigger, so I, you know, that's on their conscience, I guess, you know. And then um, when I switched over to the army and actually, you know, started doing less fobbit shit and actually going outside the wire. Um, yeah, I saw some stuff. I did some stuff, and I saw some ROE shit that fucking pissed me off. Got a lot of people injured and killed because we were trying to be more politically correct. And I was a well, I was a lot pissed off over that. Especially when they came out with the you got to take, you know, at least 3 shots before you can fire, you can return fire because they were worried about over engagement and basically killing innocents. And it's an understandable thing. U.S. ROEs are going to be a lot more restrictive based on who is in power at the time, who is running the political side of the government. So Obama was very restrictive with his ROEs, and I mean, did it do good? Yes and
But
no,
so
maybe.
my question though is, but there were certainly shifts in the standards of engagement
Oh,
from
definitely,
Kosovo to
definitely.
Afghanistan to okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
would you
Kosovo was actually pretty hands off for the most part.
yeah, which was it was
'Cause
notorious for that actually. Um
yeah,
uh would you say that the ROE would substantially change if the Chinese were occupying Texas, California, Nevada, like half of the United
yeah,
States, and were
no
marching
doubt, no
towards Washington?
yeah, I'm not even arguing. Okay, it's just it was just a little that one was a little too real, and you know, it was just my visceral reaction. And even after you responded and you said no, I went, you know what? Maybe I was a little quick to call it a war crime. So I went back, did a little bit of studying the LOAC again, refreshing myself because I haven't studied it in a while. and looked at previous ROEs that I was held under, no, they really wouldn't call that a war crime. There probably would be some disciplinary actions for that, but probably nothing of any significance, right? But when I saw that, I was just it tore me apart, dude. And I'm not a pacifist by any means. It's
Do you
just
think
that was
do you think there'd be
too.
disciplinary action if it was a drone taking a Chinese soldier outside of Nevada?
I yeah, probably if they were like that, if they were acting
There
like
would
that
be
going on.
probably disciplinary action against an American drone pilot that took out a Chinese soldier 5 kilometers from his position for standing out in the field.
If it came out, if it came out like that, and it showed if it was the exact same thing, I would imagine that the United States press would cause all kinds of ruckus until something happens. Yes.
That sounds like it's the honestly, I don't know that because the Ukrainian press didn't care about this. And I imagine like
Right.
after 9/11, the American press, we would say, while there were certainly aspects of it that weren't beating the drum beat, the commentary was definitely beating the drum beat for we need to go
Oh
over there
yeah,
and we need
yeah.
to do some stuff. And so if I'm
And
thinking half of the United States is occupied and we have our own bucha, we have our kids getting kidnapped, sent to China to be adopted out to like Chinese
mhm,
people. Like,
yeah. No, the shit's
I refuse to believe
going
that
on
the
over
American media would say the horrible American. I can't believe they took out this Chinese soldier who had given up on conquering their country in the field, or maybe didn't, because we don't know what's in their head. It's one thing to call this sad, but I refuse to believe that any country in the world would review this footage and the situation that Ukraine was in and put them under disciplinary action, let alone declare it a war crime.
I don't know. I mean, how many war crimes is Netanyahu accused of?
Well, I think that's my point. I mean,
Well, no, no.
yeah,
He's been accused of
You made my
hundreds.
point
He's
for
been
me.
accused of hundreds
Is that the
from a
Israelis have
group of
committed
people
actual
who
war
attacked
crimes.
him.
They have
I
committed
don't
war
know about
crimes.
all that.
They have committed war crimes, and then they fucking nothing's happened.
Well, it's because they're just like the US. They come on with what army are you is the world court going to bring them in? That's really what it boils down to. The
Okay, but
world
if
court's and pointless. Unless you're defeated, you will not go before the world
well,
court.
yeah,
That's
but we're
just the
not
way.
even talking about like whether or not the law can be enforced. I just don't. I mean, is there any Israeli engagement that would say, like Israeli ROE that would say, hey, if there's a Hamas soldier sitting down and he looks super depressed and he might have given up
I don't
on
know what
war?
their I don't know what their ROEs are, man. I'm not going to pretend like I do, but all I know is Israel gets which they are defending their land, and yes, Gaza is their land. So is the West Bank, by the way, just in case you haven't figured that one out.
I haven't
They are defending
because
their land.
most everyone doesn't think that except for
Well,
parts of Israel. But yeah,
for
sure.
Israel and the U.S. and
The
Gaza is
U.S.
yes.
The United States government recognizes Gaza as an instructable part of Israel.
They it's part of the Israeli territory. Yes, it's not considered a country.
They didn't say that it's part of Israel. The American government doesn't recognize Gaza as a part of Israel. Even Trump's government.
Uh, no, Trump did actually.
When?
Trump recognized the Golan Heights, first term, Golan Heights, West Bank, and Gaza, all is Israeli.
He recognized the Golan Heights as part of Israel. He never said that the Gaza Strip is part. He wanted to even he did this like deal, or Jared Kushner did this deal where they wanted to like exchange this land swap or that land swap, and I mean that even indicates that they didn't view it like that. That they were trying to find some way to get Israel the most land possible while still giving Palestine like a tiny like statelet, and that didn't work. But that indicates that they don't recognize it as part of Israel.
I just look at it as they're defending themselves from a foreign invader. Yeah, but you'll call war crimes left and right when these monsters over there in Gaza will sit there and put prisoners in with children, fire rockets out of schools, all those things that are like actual violations of the Geneva Convention. But that's okay because Israel bad because poor downtrodden Palestinian goat fuckers.
Wait,
So
wait a second. How did you? That was actually exactly what I wrote down in my notes. How'd you read that word for word too? I don't care. They have a cool headband. It's okay. I don't know how you figured that out. I don't know how you.
Oh man, you know, I just no, I just see this stuff and I'm like, I just hold the same standard. If I saw something like that, if I saw Israel doing that, I'd be like, ooh, that's bad. If I saw Palestinians doing that, I'd be like, ooh, that's bad. It doesn't matter what side it's on there. It's this one was a little bit too much, too real, too. That's an unarmed individual in a non-defensive position. Yeah, we call that murder normally. We call that
No,
murder everywhere.
I don't think they call
Yes.
it murder anywhere, because being in a non-defensive position is when the soldier is most vulnerable. It's when the Russians are going on assaults or going on moving around that they're most likely to get hunted. And that's when the Ukrainians hunt for them the most, because that's when they're most vulnerable. That doesn't make it murder. That makes it, well, you're going after them when they're out of their den.
I did.
Like, is it easier to kill a soldier when they're in a bunker or outside of a bunker?
Oh, it's always easier to kill them outside of the bunker. I'm not arguing against that. Okay, I'm just saying
Top of the pyramid, man. The drone was the top. The drone pilot was on the top of the pyramid. What are you gonna say, man? Top of the pyramid.
I guess, man. So, yeah, good stuff. That one was like the first time I'm like, ooh, no, Ukraine. That was not a good move.
I mean, what do you mean?
They probably shouldn't have put that one out.
I don't know.
That's the kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that will literally turn people against the Ukrainians.
Everybody that I've seen that have looked at this video and say, you know what, I'm no longer supportive of Ukraine, was not supportive of Ukraine already.
Yeah, well, see, I haven't even came out and said that. I'm like, that's bad optics.
Okay, do you want to send aid to Ukraine?
I have sent aid to Ukraine. I've actually donated to Anna's charity several times.
Do you think the United States government should send aid to Ukraine?
No, we didn't vote for that.
I think every single person I've seen that's gotten angry about this holds that same position. I've yet to see anybody's like, I was in favor of $100 billion new aid package. Then I saw this guy sitting in a field and I thought, you know what? Never mind. I have yet to see that.
See, I haven't said that. My stance from the beginning of this is the U.S. should be out of it, period. My stance hasn't changed. That doesn't mean I won't donate personally, because I think like Ukrainian Anna, I want her. I want to help her. I want to help, keep people alive and shit like that. I see nothing wrong with that. I just don't like the coercion of government forcing our tax money.
How many tanks have you donated?
None. I can't afford one, buddy.
Or at least an artillery shell, no?
No.
Okay, so how do we expect the Ukrainians to get a substantial, or any government to get a substantial amount of aid to help them in any endeavor from individuals, when governments are the only ones that can collect the resources to get stuff to send? They did. Congress held a vote and they sent aid to Ukraine.
No, hold a vote. Hold a general election.
A referendum on specifically aid to Ukraine.
I would definitely support something like that. That's the democratic way, right?
I think it's kind of redundant in a Republican system.
Well, I understand, but
we elect representatives to become experts on these issues and to study these issues so they can make informed decisions. Yes, that's how a representative democracy works. That's why we're not the Greeks all standing in like the local town hall holding up red cards or green cards.
To claim that any of those idiots in Washington is an expert on anything is hilarious, dude. You know it.
Well, they're still more informed than the general population on the war.
Well, I'm sure. But I think the general population, I think when it comes to things like aid to countries, especially lethal aid and things like that, I believe the American public should be polled on that.
They are polled. They largely support aid to Ukraine. Over 60%
is occurred.
No. I'm talking about
when Israel killed Yahya.
I'm talking about an actual referendum. Put it on the ballot. Let's see.
By the way, do you think Israel should have killed Yahya? You should have killed Sinwar? Do you think they should have been like, ooh, he's sitting in a chair, he's unarmed? It's kind of like, this isn't right.
I actually, when I saw that video, I was like, but he is the leader, and yeah, leaders must die. Like if they were to assassinate Putin tomorrow, I'd say.
But he looked very defeated, though.
Yeah, but
he did throw a stick, though. He did throw a stick. That he wasn't that.
There you go. At least That was something. That
So
was at least
is the
something.
stick makes it not a war crime?
Well, it's at least it's an offensive move. At least he shows that he wanted to live. I mean,
So if somebody wants to live, it's better to kill
if
them.
you're just sitting there doing
Okay.
nothing and it looks like you're that fucking defeated, no,
So
dude.
if somebody wants to live, it's better to kill them than if they don't want to live. Okay.
Look, man, I know you've seen some stuff out there, and that's cool. Put a gun in your hand and go do it.
What? What is it? What did
Go
that?
out
Where
there
did that come from?
go out there. If you think that that's all well and good, go do it then. You know, I disagree with it. I'm like, I don't like that. I really don't like the FPV stuff. Although the FPV stuff worked well with the assault on the air bases. I think that's awesome. I would rather destroy equipment all day. I think that's great.
I mean, I agree with the assault on the air, but FPVs is the future of warfare, whether people like it or not.
Yeah,
If we abandon it, the Chinese will still do it. The rest of the world will still do it.
Yeah.
And I think the FPV
terrifying.
pilots, in my experience, they're incredibly brave people. I mean, most people I think it's like Reaper drones or something. Like you're like 1,000 miles away from that. You have to be like 3
A lot
kilometers.
closer.
You have to be
Yeah, it's a
really,
lot
really
closer.
close. And if you're a grenade dropping drone, I mean, you're talking like 2 kilometers. I mean, you're within mortar range. You're within the range of basically. I mean, hell, you'd be in the range of sniper fire. Even though snipers are kind of going out of vogue now in this war, which is kind of a weird phenomenon. There was one other thing. Oh yeah, I just needed to retouch on this. Why are you so confident that if if this guy had like a little blue and yellow patch on his shoulder, that I would declare this a war crime, or if this was a Palestinian, that I would declare? I mean, I assume a Palestinian fighter, not just a random Palestinian fighter. I would call this a war crime.
Because of your worldview, man. You're that biased. It is what it is. It's nothing bad against you.
Can you prove
It's
that?
not
Like any like record of like me making statements that I otherwise like double standards? Because I publish articles, like I interview deserters. My last published article is an interview with the deserter from the 155 talking about graft, talking about why he left the terrible commander, talking about all the things that led somebody to say, you know what, not worth it, and jump the fence, right? The last interview, the last publicized video on my channel is my embed with Skull, which is a brigade, like a unit of prisoner soldiers, people who joined out of the prison system. And I'm talking about all the difficulties they face and like the institutional challenge. Like this is not Ukrainian propaganda. I even got videos, the comments from Russians under that saying surprisingly honest, like really strange. Of course, every once in a while, it'd still say, "Why'd you say the Russians torture people? That's a like Kiev lie." But I would, so if I have earned this partisan label by documenting this war, I care deeply about making sure the historical record is true and is accurate. Because, dude, you gotta understand that journalism is the first draft of history, and if I mess it up, then that's going to mess up commentary and knowledge about this war for hundreds of years after I'm gone, because people will say, "Oh, Dylan said where this footage showed this, and I'm misrepresenting it." So, when I the start of my Sumi documentary was a rant of a soldier yelling at a press officer, "Kursk was a mistake. It was a mistake. We shouldn't have invaded Russia. Why are we invading? We're not Russian." That's how the documentary opens. That's the first thing people see when they click on it. And so I don't think I've earned this label.
Well, so if you actually look at our history, our interactions and things, Dylan, you have earned it. Now, maybe for the war, I haven't been following you all that much, dude. The past like what 8-9 months, dude. I've mostly been unplugged. I haven't been following this stuff. Now, I know that this is serious to you and it's important, and I appreciate that. I've looked up a couple of I saw the one documentary where you were interviewing the guy with Anna. I can't remember the
right sector or Kraken.
Right sector. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite interviews, the 2-parter.
Yeah, I thought it was well done and everything else. But I'm looking at pre-Ukraine war, our interactions and stuff like that. And so, no, you earned that with me. Now, I could be wrong, and I'll sit there and go, maybe things have changed. Maybe you've matured a little bit and you become
Matured.
more objective because of seeing the things that you've seen and talk to the people that you have. You've gotten a new perspective, and that's always a possibility. So yes, no, you've earned that with me. Mazel tov.
Can you bring up an
But
instance where I earned it?
dude, I just think of all the shenanigans.
Don't pull a
stupidity.
Vadim, please. Don't
No,
pull a
dude, I
Vadim.
don't even know what that is. Okay. I just think of all the shit that how you've lied about how certain politicians do stuff the way you used to frame things. No, you were completely dishonest.
Which politicians did what stuff?
Well, you've done it for Trump. You've done it for
What did I lie
all kinds
about
of
Trump?
You've even, dude, I don't remember the instances. We're talking years ago, man. I just know that you left that impression with me. That's all it is.
Okay, well, can't tangle with an impression.
Well, no. It's so. Do I have a list? No, I don't care anymore, man. I'm just chilling. I asked you a question because I actually wanted your opinion, and that's all it was.
Okay.
So,
but it's not like I'm not like being unreasonable if you say, oh well, if this was turned, you'd be like a propagandist for me to say, okay, well, substantiate, right?
Well, so I'm sitting there. You left that impression with me, what, 2 years ago? Okay, I didn't forget that. What all led up to that? Well, it was a multiple little things, but I've seen some of your work here and there. But it's not like I'm really following it all that heavy, because I'm not following politics all that much. Surprise, surprise. I'm just kind of living my life, man, and doing what I want to do now, playing music and having a little bit more fun. But when I saw that, I was like, ooh. And so I asked the person who I consider to be one of the most informed on the Ukrainian war, because you're actually going over there, you're talking to people and stuff like that. What say you? Notice I didn't bring out some indictment. I'm like, this is a war crime. Yeah, that's in my opinion. Hey, Dylan Burns, what do you think? That's all that was. And I even didn't follow up on it. You said no, went cool. You reached out to me. Hey, you want to talk? Sure.
Well, yeah, because like I don't need to do like the back and forth Twitter legal like if somebody wants I'm much more of a I'm an orator. I'm an orator, not a writer, more or less.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of disgusting replies to be even saying that. Like one person even suggested, that doing that to an illegal alien here in America be acceptable, which I just found to be disgusting.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's ludicrous. So I'm just sitting there going, wow, there's some unhinged motherfuckers. This is why I stepped away for a while, and I'm like, hey, I literally go to the expert as I see it on the Ukrainian war. I'll listen to some of the updates here and there from like the vet bro people, and really all they're doing is just highlighting either. Some will do both Russian and Ukrainian, but others are just like picking just one side, just like, okay, it's not too much, but they're not over there. You are. I find it interesting. And so occasionally I come in, I see what your take is on it. And that's what I did. I asked you for your take, and you gave it to me. I appreciate it.
You certainly got responses from a lot of people.
I'm sure I did. But I don't live on social media anymore, man.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So I just want to know, do these like international standards matter to you? Like war crime, what isn't a war crime? What isn't a war crime? What is legal by international law when it comes to the treatment of minorities or peoples and like genocide and mass expulsion? Or are these like all arbitrary to you?
I mean, for the most part, yeah. But I think that there's a lot of hyperbole when people use the genocide word. But this has been a stance of mine for forever. People call things genocide when they're obviously not. Gaza's like the best the best example of that, because for a genocide they sure are tripling their population. Wow, so much genocide, much wow there. So when I hear the hyperbolic talk about this and that, I literally just go, yeah, show me the proof. But the stuff that's, when I saw, was it the mass grave in Bucha?
Bucha, I think you're talking about.
Yeah, Bucha. Yeah, you talked about you actually did some stuff about mass grave, and I was like, oh wow, no, that is disgusting. That's terrible. That's fucking war crime. That's terrible. Um, when I see evidence of it, and it's not just hyperbolic bullshit, I'm like, oh, yes, that's bad. Yes, I do believe that, we should have standards, but all the same, the reality is the world court has no army. And unless you defeat, there's nothing that'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just the reality of it. It is what it is. Saddam Hussein would have never hung had the U.S. not overtaken and captured him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like hard power is important for enforcing the law. You
Yeah,
can have every law, but you need to be able to enforce it, or the law doesn't really matter. And I agree that this is
exactly.
one of the key issues of like global standards and such, and it's something that the international community needs to work on. Um, I just I'm just
I
curious.
disagree. I disagree that the international. I don't believe that you should give like a world court of police force or something like that. I just don't see that because now you're going to be imposing on national sovereignty.
Okay.
I mean, I would love blue hats to come here into the U.S. trying to take an American soldier or something. I mean,
If they're a war
that
criminal, I would too.
yeah, that would be the dumbest shit. Uh, Target rich environment is what that would be, and Americans aren't going to stand for that because they're not going to allow their sovereignty to be impeded by some foreign body.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think most Americans actually really care all that much. Um, because I mean, the most Americans, do you think they really care if like an international court can bring a like really disgusting American war criminal to trial there? Like most of that's ridiculous. They shouldn't be able to do that. I know that there are Americans who believe that, but I'm not convinced that the majority of Americans would be that upset if it was provable that an American soldier had massacred a bunch of civilians at a village, pulled off some My Lai style massacre, and they were then, tried on the
I think
international
if
court.
something like that, I think if something like that were to happen, I believe that the United States military would more than readily and happily handle that properly.
Well, it's
I
not.
don't
That's
believe
not their job. Their job's to follow the
don't
orders of the
care.
commander in
No,
chief. And
their job is also to police themselves. That's why they have the UCMJ. I would never want an American surrendered to an international body for something that they did in service of the country. Just no, never. Worst thing in the world. Nope. America will take care of
worst
it.
thing in the world.
Yep, we'll
So,
take care of it.
do you think individual countries are really decent arbiters when determining whether their own people committed war crimes?
No, but I believe that the U.S. judicial system and the U.S. military judicial system is more than adequate to handle that.
More than adequate. More than adequate.
Yes, definitely better than a foreign entity. Yes.
How is it better than the International Criminal Court? By which standards are you dictating that?
Well, I mean, you basically have my stance right there on the Jason, conservative nationalist. I mean, yes, nationalist. Yes, America can handle America's problems
Okay, so it's
better
not the
than
legal standards or whether the courts are like particularly efficient or
I
whatever.
believe.
It's just
I
that
believe
they're
American
not
justice
American.
system is better. Yes, if they're not American, they're insignificant to me when it comes to dealing with America.
Got you. Didn't you say earlier that there was an American soldier that stabbed a prisoner and then canoed them,
Yes,
and then
yes,
they were
Eddie Glauber.
pardoned?
Yes,
Okay, so is that not a
and he was
problem?
also found. Well, so he was also found innocent, and he was found not guilty after the pardon. But yes,
But you said
from
that
the
you thought it was a war
the
crime. You
testimony
said
that
you
I
looked at
read,
the
yes, I
facts
thought
and
it
you
was.
saw it looked like a war
I
crime to
looked
you.
at the testimony and I thought that, but a jury of his peers decided otherwise.
Okay. And
No,
why
I mean,
and why are you confident that you're confident that's the correct decision?
because that's our justice system. When a jury actually makes a decision, if I agree with it or not, there may be some facts in the case that maybe I didn't see, maybe that I'm unaware of, because not everything gets publicized in those. And maybe they saw something I didn't, you know? That's why we have juries. I don't always agree with jury decisions, but I mean, it is what it is. That's how the American system works.
Okay, I think we've gone through I think as much of this as we really can. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
No, man, I appreciate your time. Thank you for the candor and let me know what you think, and why. And yeah, you have a wonderful day. Keep safe over there. And yeah, keep doing what you do, bud.
Okay, you stay safe too. Bye-bye.
Bye, bro. Later.
Oof. Okay. Activate. We are back. Back on the attack. Back on the attack. Where were we?